Welcome back, everyone, to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name's Casen.
Today we're jumping into the story proper of Final Fantasy X. We actually get to talk about the thing I wanted to talk about last time today. My goodness. Just want to say this first. This is a really special game.
It's really cool.
There are some games that come around where it's like, there's just something about this lightning in a bottle type feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And while I have my grievances or differences in artistic, creative sort of like preferences from these designers in particular, the Tetsuya Nomura's and the Yoshinori Kitase's and the Motomo Toriyamas of the world, I differ from them in my taste. This game is special. This is the best game they've made, ever.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, I liked 8. We appreciated a lot about it by the time it was over. So I like Final Fantasy 8. I don't love it, but I like it. I love this game.
Me too.
This game is phenomenal.
Now, I have played this game before.
Yes.
But this second playthrough is even more special. It's even more meaningful. Like, I'm getting things that I didn't get before. And I'm seeing things, especially looking at it with a more critical eye, specifically for this series. I'm like not disappointed in the deeper levels of analysis that I can approach this game with and that hold, you know. Like, it's really, really cool. So they did this is very well thought through. Yes.
So I'm precluding the entire series here, our podcast series, with that. This game is special. This is an all-time great game. It is one of the best Final Fantasy games ever made. So when we bring up criticisms of things, it is not in any way deterring from that fact. That I still feel like this is one of the best games I've ever played.
It's really
particularly
good.
In the series.
Did it make your top 50?
I just barely did a top 50, in which I did not include it, and I regret doing that.
Now that we're playing it again?
It should have been on there.
Well, maybe next year.
Maybe next time I make a top 100, right? I'll just keep escalating it forever. That's what I tend to do.
Yeah, this game, I'm so the opposite of disappointed. Because for some reason, and I liked it when I first played it. My first playthrough of this game was a special experience. I loved it. I really did. But not the way that I'm enjoying it this time. Like, I am liking it in a whole different way now. And some of that also is I'm playing it with my wife. At least part of it.
She's into this style of game too.
Now, I'm going to throw in a few of her anecdotes. Like there's a girl named the Boob Lady. And, well, anyways. I kind of regret...
We'll talk about design.
I kind of regret playing this with my wife. As soon as I get a little ways into it, I'm like, all right.
But isn't that the story of anime and JRPGs, though? So anytime your family members walk by, you're like embarrassed to be playing this game.
I have a friend who he says he whenever somebody catches him watching anime, he closes his laptop and he would rather admit that he's watching porn than that he was watching anime. And we say that as people who like appreciate anime for what it is. I like anime a lot.
It's very likely that we will be on our exclusive podcast. If those of you don't know, we have a second exclusive podcast for our patrons. We will probably be talking about the first 5 episodes of Cowboy Bebop as our next exclusive breakdown on there. If it's not that, it's going to be Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Either way.
So we like anime. We're not trying to like dump on anime, but
you'll know what I mean if you have, or if you're married to a person who isn't into that kind of stuff or who doesn't have as much exposure to it, and then you show them Final Fantasy X thinking that it's just going to be
here's a normal game,
a normal experience.
No, it's not.
And then it's all of a sudden I'm noticing things I wouldn't notice before. So anyways, aside from that, I'm having a much better experience with this game the second time. I really recommend you guys play this game twice.
I think this is my 3rd or 4th. I can't remember because I played it in high school with a friend. Then I played it for the review that I did, but I think I played it twice.
For the review?
For the review. But I don't remember if I did or not. Maybe I got halfway through on a second or something.
Sure.
So this might be technically my 3rd real playthrough.
Okay, nice.
And it's amazing. So
it really is. It really is.
It opens up with...
Hold on. Are you past this part? Logo at the start?
Well, are we talking about the scene where they're sitting there by the campfire?
Okay, it's before that.
Okay.
So at the very beginning of the game, do we have it? We don't have it.
Oh, the symbol.
It's just the press start to play, you know, but there's a symbol. It's like 2 hooks, right? 2 fish hooks, and then like a sword hook thing coming down.
Eject
yes,
symbol.
And it's the symbol for whatever the Abes, the Zanarkand Abes, and it's also whatever Tidus is wearing on his necklace.
Oh, his necklace.
And then he's got earrings, and then his pants have basically that same symbol again.
Yeah.
And then that symbol's just kind of all over his body.
Yeah.
It's a really cool symbol.
It's really cool.
As soon as I look at it, I'm like, okay, you can learn a lot about this game just from the opening, the very beginning, just that logo right there.
Yeah.
Right? You've got the electric kind of feel to it. It's jagged. Everything's really jagged. It's like, hey, these are hooks, sure, but it's like a jagged lightning hook, you know? And it comes out into 2 different directions and then at the bottom, which sort of gives off some cross imagery a little bit, but I don't think that was super intentional.
Yeah, I think so.
What I've read...
Because it's Asian-inspired religious influences.
What I have read is that it's more a combination of some letters, right? But some letters that... I read extra letters into it than they...
did
initially input into it. I will say the letters, right? There is a T, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Looks like a T. There is a J.
I can see that.
There is an S
Okay.
on the side, and there is a Y.
I can see that.
Yeah. So those are the 4 letters, right?
Okay.
And each of those stands for something at some point in the game. I have heard people talk about the T and J. I've never heard anyone talk about the S and Y, but they're there, and it's
You
I
have
love
notes
it.
on this for later?
I do.
Okay.
I have notes on this for later, and I love when somebody can take multiple meanings, like J.R.R. Tolkien's little stamp.
Yeah, his little insignia.
Coat of arms. Yeah, his insignia. It's got a J and an R and a T and 2 R's technically.
It's really cool.
It looks cool, but you can look at it and you can kind of like measure it and determine the meaning of where it came from and how it came to look like that.
Yeah, right.
I can do that with this logo really well, and I absolutely love it. I think it's.
I'm looking forward to that because I didn't think about that at all. So.
Yeah, it's so cool.
That'll be cool.
When I see symbols lately, this is what I do now.
Yes.
As of the past 4 months, I'm like, what does this mean?
Since Xenogears and learning about archetypes of the collective unconscious or whatever.
I really can't help it, but it did start with Xenogears. It started with that, and maybe it didn't start with that because I've been into symbolism for a while. But that definitely was a steroid shot in the leg, and I'm just like fired up about this stuff now, and I'm seeing it everywhere, and it's intentional everywhere.
Yeah.
Not always what people know it to be.
Yes.
But art. Anyways, the reason you're drawn to it, there's a reason.
Collective unconscious, baby.
Collective unconscious, exactly. So anyways, I've got all of this. There's a few other meanings to it as well. So only one of them am I going into right here, and that is that it represents a couple of letters. The name Blitzball sounds electric, right? The word blitz is blitz. German. The word blitz means lightning in German. And so you've got the lightning shape, but then there's fish hooks. And the fish hooks are the Polynesian culture, right?
Yeah.
You've got the hooks for fishing, and most island cultures will have an affinity towards the hook
fishing
shape.
cultures.
Yeah, it means providing. It means food. A fish hook. Like Maui has his fish hook, and you see that imagery a lot in Polynesian culture and stuff.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Anyways, that's where we're gonna stop with that. But it means other things that we'll talk about later.
Okay,
for
sweet.
Sure.
When you press start, it opens up with 2 Zanarkand, the piano piece by Nobuo Uematsu.
Now,
perhaps one of the best tracks written for the whole series.
It's really good. It's so good. In fact, my wife recognized it. She was like, "Wait, this is where that's from?" I know. My wife used to play that song on the piano. She had the sheet music for it, and she knew the name of it and everything. And I'm like, but she'd never really even known about this game.
With this.
Yeah. She had played Kingdom Hearts and stuff, but she didn't play Final Fantasy. And so she's like, "Oh my gosh!" She got really excited when we saw that. But it's beautiful. But the remastered version of this game has an option for like the music tracks.
Oh right, the arranged version. Versus
do you want the original or do you want the arranged? And I know the original soundtrack quite well, and that's how I originally played it. So I do the arranged this time, and it's like, I love it. I think it's really cool. Either way, you can't go wrong. But the arranged soundtrack is full and just beautiful. It's so good. And they use the piano collections to Zanarkand.
There's been one maybe just the main battle theme where I've preferred the original over the
Oh,
arranged.
yeah.
But in almost every other case, I prefer the arranged.
I like the arranged a lot, and
Yeah.
that's not a knock.
Not usually the
against the
case
original.
for me.
No, me too.
When we're talking
Me
about
too.
like Nier Automata,
Yeah.
or not Automata,
just
but Nier Replicant.
Yes.
Remastered.
I preferred the original.
I preferred the original.
Most of the time.
A lot of times, even like Xenoblade Chronicles, I prefer the original over
yeah.
the remastered. So that's not usually the case for me. In this
Yeah.
case, I like the arranged better.
Yeah, me too.
So that song is playing in the background, and you see 3 weapons sort of just like
Yeah.
resting on a mound.
Yep.
So you have like Tidus' sword, Yuna's rod, and the Blitzball that Waka's uses,
ball, yeah.
kind of sitting there. And they're all sitting around a campfire, and there's quiet. It's like a somber moment. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's almost like there's a heaviness. They're all feeling.
No one's talking.
No one's talking. They're just they're reflecting. They're introspective. They're kind of in their own heads.
Yeah.
Tidus stands up, walks over and puts his hand on Yuna's shoulder. She sort of touches his hand, and again, they don't say anything to each other. You just get this sense like something is about to happen,
Yeah.
something that there's an inevitability coming.
And you get a sense of closeness, that these are really close friends. You know,
Yeah.
these are people who've been through a ton together.
Yeah.
And they're just like, they've come to the end of some type of journey and just all the things they've experienced, you know.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's happening, but you can tell, you can feel the tension, and you can see the relationships between these people and how they
Yeah.
all kind of work together.
Yeah, it's like
cool.
It's a really it really feels like an end of a journey scene.
Yes.
And all of them feel a weight and a heaviness.
Yep.
And just like, oh my goodness, like what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
And Tidus walks up to look at the ruins of a city in the distance.
That's such a cool design city
yeah.
too. There's like almost like a live stream kind of
Yeah.
thing going in the air,
Yeah.
and then there's these little wisps of light that are just popping up and going around. These little fairies, you know.
Yeah.
And it looks so crazy because that city looks sort of modern, but also it's in ruins. Right?
Yeah.
So, okay, this is post-apocalyptic,
That's what it
but
feels
also
like.
you're in a desert and things seem kind of old-timey. It's
Right.
hard to pinpoint what genre you're dealing with right off the bat with this.
Yeah.
It seems just pure fantasy, which is
Right.
cool.
And so the first line of dialogue is spoken in Tidus's own mind.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even his mind. It's more like fourth wall to the audience, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen to my story. This may be our last chance. And it sort of fades
That's
out.
it.
And at the Final Fantasy X logo
Yeah.
reveal happens there. The title reveal, I should say, right? And then it goes into what I would call like the proper first scene of the game.
Yeah. See, whenever they do that kind of thing with the like NVIDIA Res kind of, you know, throwing you into a situation without knowing, I often wonder whether that was intentional or whether they decided later on, hey, this intro's kind of different. We'd rather give people an idea of how this game will be by throwing an ending scene on the front.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how it was written or not, but something about that kind of felt that way. That doesn't mean it was the wrong choice. I think it was a fine choice.
Yeah.
But I do question whether or not that was supposed to be there because it's so short, and because there's very little dialogue there, and it just kind of it's just presented as is, and then you go into the actual game and you almost forget that.
It also serves
So
as
quickly.
the demo scene. So like when you leave the start screen alone, it'll just kind of play that scene. And so then you press start and it just plays it again, kind of thing. It's a little bit like Final Fantasy VIII. No, not Final Fantasy VIII. Final Fantasy did not do that. What was the other game I was thinking of? Anyways, other games do this where you leave the start screen alone, it'll like play a demo thing, but then like when you press start, it'll play the same demo again. Anyways,
Gotcha.
so we talked a lot in the FF8 podcast about hooks. Like what scene do you play to like hook the audience into the story? Did the opening little like fight scene between Squall and Cypher and those, you know, like flashes to other things, did that serve as like a great hook in comparison to
Are
how
you interested?
Final Fantasy stories had done opening scenes in the past? I interviewed Hironobu Sakaguchi directly. If you haven't seen this on our channel, it's for Fantasian. There's a video I did, an interview for Fantasian, which is Hironobu Sakaguchi's latest game. One of the questions I asked him was, because we were doing the FF8 podcast at the time, I asked him about how he goes about structuring his intros. Like, is there a method to this? I noticed that there's a difference between how Final Fantasy 4 and 5 and 6 and 7
Yes.
The intros
and he
are done
agreed
there.
With you. He goes, yep.
Versus 8, and 8 feels different. He was just like nodding, like yes, yes, there is a difference. It felt like, having done all of this research I've done into the friction that was happening behind the scenes, and the split between Sakaguchi and Kitase onto different teams to handle Final Fantasy. I don't know this for a fact, but I got the impression, based on the enthusiasm behind his response to that question, that this was part of what he didn't love about FF8 or something like that. Again, don't quote me, don't put me on Wikipedia for having confirmed this. I'm just saying he had a very different approach to intros than this team did. And that being said, I think the hook of this scene is absolutely phenomenal.
It's extremely good.
By the end of this sequence in Zanarkand, I was like, wow, that is awesome. I cannot wait to see what happens next.
The first 15 minutes of this game are quite literally insane. It is so unbelievable what I was watching, but I was so captivated. Unbelievably captivated. And as things are happening with that heavy metal song going, and just the dissonance and the contrast and just the beauty, but the foreign nature of everything, it just felt so different. It was so unique and just so captivating. I don't see how anybody could look at that and not think I want more. I want to find out what's happening here.
Yes.
It might be the best hook I've ever seen, actually.
It's really good.
It was so, I remember halfway through, as we'll get into this, but as the city starts to, experience this, what do you call, apocalyptic event, thinking I can't believe how crazy cool this is. I really can't believe it. They really are making me feel this, and this is it's just so well done.
Yeah, when I come off the back of FF8's intro to this, it's to me a night and day difference in terms of its ability to interest me and hook me right away. With FF8, there's that little FMV video, but then there's just this long school period of introducing you to. Again, I'm not saying this is bad,
and I don't mind that. I think that was fine.
I like
for
FF8,
that game.
But it just takes a while before you get to the invasion beach. In Dalit.
Which is what really hooks you into the game.
For me, I always felt like that should have been the intro scene of the game.
Yeah, they could have had more schooling after that.
I still feel that way. Despite the counterpoints that have been made to me, I still feel like the Dalit mission should have been the intro, because it was the intro in the demo of FF8.
Ah, there you go.
Which to me says it all. They wanted to hook people into a demo and get them excited to buy a game. They used Dalit, not the school stuff. So,
there you go.
Anyways, this does that.
As far as hooks go, this is perfect.
Fetching awesome.
It is in fact, it might be too good. This part of what I was thinking was because we have exposure to a lot of media, we analyze a lot of stuff, and we're in this world, right?
Yeah.
But I just could not, and I've played this game before, but I still couldn't believe how perfect the first 15, 20 minutes of this game were.
Yeah.
It's just something else.
So you kind of come into this. Well, it's dark outside, so it's like a nighttime thing. But it's like a dark city of Zanarkand. It's like a futuristic kind of feel to it. Like tall skyscrapers.
Yeah, tons, thousands of them.
Walkways and highways and things. And like you said, some of these water sort of floating through the air in these streams.
A river, an arch. It's a river, cool, just flowing water through the air.
And I really like the new mix they do for the prelude, the Final Fantasy prelude thing.
That was a difference. So we talked about the people who did the music here. Yeah. This is a fourth person who did that prelude.
Oh, really?
He specifically was hired to be a keyboardist. He's not so much a composer. He's just a keyboard kind of guy. He's a synth dude. He came up with this version of the Final Fantasy intro.
That's cool.
And it's super cool. It's really good.
Yeah, and it gives it that appropriate sort of feel, that electric, what's the term? Electro sort of vibe to it, right?
Yeah.
That makes it feel like a futuristic sort of city, but it's got that Final Fantasy prelude in it.
Yeah,
and I really liked it. And so the first thing you see though is some people, kind of gathering around, and you see this ghostly boy with a purple hood who sort of walks past the camera.
Yeah.
And he's featured predominantly in this sort of opening sequence.
Yeah. He keeps showing up in random places.
A little bit I think only one other time later in terms of what we played through so far, but he's heavily featured here. And so then we're introduced to our main character, Tidus, who is a star athlete. He's a Blitzball player for the Zanarkand Abes.
Yeah, Zanarkand Abes.
And he's kind of coming up to a crowd of people who are looking for autographs. So he's signing Blitzballs and
for kids and girls. And
look for me in the stands. I'll do this, and you'll know that was for you. He's got this very charismatic personality. It's a pretty sharp contrast from, say, Squall or Cloud from Final Fantasy. A little bit more in line with Zidane in Final Fantasy IX.
Showy and very extroverted.
I like that aspect of Tidus' personality. He's very personable, expressive, outgoing.
He's not the smartest.
Not the brightest dude, but
he's got a good heart, and he's
Goku, right? The Goku archetype.
There you go, yeah.
Anyway, you know, interacting with people. Now, I think I'll just bring this up now. I think I want to get it out of the way. There are a lot of people who hate the voice for this character.
Okay.
And I think I understand why. I don't myself. James Arnold Taylor, who does the voice, we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, is I cannot overstate, a phenomenal voice actor. A phenomenal voice talent who can do a billion impressions, like near perfectly. He does, like I said, Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Clone Wars. And he sounds exactly like Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
He doubles for Michael J. Fox as Milo for Atlantis. He does Fred Flintstone in a bunch of cartoons. He does commercials. He does a million cartoon characters and video game characters. And he's got this incredible range. He can do basically any voice you want. He was approached by the director, the voice director for the English version of Final Fantasy X, because the guy heard his voice in, I believe, Atlantis or something like that.
It was around that time.
And was like, your natural voice, your James Arnold Taylor normal voice is perfect for this character, Tidus, in this upcoming Final Fantasy X game. We want you to do it. He didn't even audition. They basically just went and got him.
Now, I had heard something about the voice acting here, that some of the producers actually wanted to get a really famous name.
Yeah.
That there were actually two particular famous English actors that they had in mind that I don't know who they were. I'm sure maybe somebody does. Say in the comments if you know who those were. But they had some people in mind for who were going to voice Yuna and Tidus. And it was determined at some point, because they really wanted this game to be successful, you know?
Yeah.
It was determined at some point that they didn't want these characters to become attached to those actors.
Yes.
They didn't want the actors to color people's ideas of what these characters were going to be like. And so they went with lesser known people for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was brought on. He said he didn't even have to audition for it, but he's basically just using his natural voice.
Now, a lot of voice actors actually have trouble with that. I'm surprised hearing you say that. That's crazy, because the actor, Peter Sellers, famous actor, he always did different voices, and he had trouble playing characters that were too close to who he really was.
Right.
And he had a big trouble voicing voices that were his voice. He said when he's using his normal voice, he's not a very good actor, according to himself. He's like, I can't be myself. I don't even know who I am. I can be other people, sure, but I can't just be Peter Sellers. Like that was his thing, you know. It was very difficult for him to use his normal voice. A lot of people wanted him for his normal voice, and he would like refuse those jobs. He was like, please give me a character to play. I'm not here to be myself.
Yeah.
Anyways, a lot of people are like that. Especially voice actors, and you don't feel like you're acting when you're just using your normal voice.
Right.
So I almost wonder if that, I mean, it's a great opportunity for James Arnold Taylor?
Arnold Taylor, yeah.
To be able to do this. I'm sure he wasn't going to turn the job down, but that, a lot of directors and people may not realize that voice actors actually have trouble just being themselves and doing their own normal voice.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of almost lose your normal voice when you're constantly doing other people's voices. It's like, what do I sound like? I can sound like whoever I want.
Yeah, right.
Like, but what do I naturally sound like? I don't, like, there's almost an existential crisis there.
Yeah.
So anyways, that may color some of what happens a little bit later on.
Yeah, and so, I mean, this is not like a small number of people who do not like his voice. And the main complaint is always in the realm of he sounds really whiny.
Okay.
High-pitched, whiny.
kind of written that way. But
So
I got you.
here are my thoughts on this. I love James Arnold Taylor. I don't think the actor, I don't think they should have picked someone else. I think he could have been directed differently. He could have done literally any voice they wanted.
Why did they just want his normal voice?
So
that's like hell for an actor. I just want you to be yourself.
Here's
like,
the thing.
Crap, what do I do?
James Arnold Taylor is kind of a nerd in real life.
Okay.
And that's not like I'm not saying, oh, he's a nerd. Like, I'm a nerd. Like, nerd culture has kind of permeated all of pop culture.
It's become a big
now.
deal now.
We talk for hours every week about JRPG and video games, right? Like, obviously we're nerds too. So I'm not saying that as like a bash on him or his character. He's a really awesome person.
Yeah.
I follow his channel and have for years.
Yeah, he does like instructional tutorial videos for actors.
Voice acting and audio equipment and how to get into the industry. And those are things I've considered doing myself because I do audio. It's part of what I do for my work and things like that. And so I have a whole setup in here very similar to the one he has. And I use a microphone similar to the one, well, he has a million of them. But anyways, the point is, like, I follow his channel for those reasons. He's a really cool person. I really like him. But he is kind of a nerd. Yeah. And the character is a pro athlete.
Oh,
and so I feel like those things are a bit mismatched. Now,
sure.
What you're talking about with the characters written that way, I agree with because, and we'll get into this a little bit because you actually do see some of this. He has some problems with his father. He has some daddy issues, right? And his father was, what's the word for it?
Michael Jordan?
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
But the way he treated him, it was borderline, well, it was abusive. Let's just call it verbally abusive.
Yeah.
So he grew up feeling weak. He grew up feeling like he's not good enough, not strong enough. He's a crybaby, these sorts of things. He's a very emotionally vulnerable character. And so what I think might have worked a little better for some of these people who really hate it is if there's a little bit of similarity for me with Cloud, the character Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, who he comes off very differently. He projects a very different aura early on to what you get later with the character when you actually learn about his past.
Yeah.
And that's because he's trying to cover his perceived weakness with a projection of strength. Okay. And in that case, that's kind of what I feel like Tidus is doing, but he's also part of this pro-athlete culture. And me, having grown up playing sports, and particularly through high school, there's a whole culture in there that is very, let's just call it high testosterone, very alpha male dominated, very, there's like a machoism to it.
Sure.
It's about not showing weakness, never giving up. Like, even when you're on like the border of feeling like you're going to fail and your muscles are never stop, right?
Yes.
And there's a culture around professional athletics that I think would have colored the way that his temperament and personality developed and the way he would act. And
also probably colored the way his father treated him. Yeah.
And so in order to cover up him feeling like, oh, I'm this crybaby weak person, he would have tried to exude his athleticism and his strength and a little bit more of that maybe alpha male like projection is what I feel would have been a natural choice for the voice of the character. And I think maybe had that been what he chose to do with that, some of this, because I mean, there's like spoony, I don't know if you've seen the spoony reviews of the Final Fantasy games. He was really big years and years ago.
I do remember,
but
I can't
railed
recall.
on FF8 and FF10 and FF13 in particular. Right. Just like, it was funny.
Sure.
It was overdone. It was meant to be funny. But this was one of the things he would always bring up, how whiny this character sounds.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's fine to leave it as it is. I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, this is a huge detriment to the experience. Yeah. But I do feel like there's maybe a bit of a mismatch between James Arnold Taylor's natural voice and someone who's a pro athlete in the world of Zanarkand.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That maybe he could have just changed his inflection a little bit and it would have fit in a little better.
And to your point, I think what you're getting at is James Arnold Taylor could have done that easily.
Absolutely could have.
As an actor, he had the range and the talent to do that.
Yes.
So this would be more on the director than the voice actor.
A voice direction thing, not a voice actor thing.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a common thread anytime we bring up voice acting in this game.
Yeah, so, which we will, but we'll try to be, I think that's good to talk about James Arnold Taylor and that he's actually a human, that he's like a person.
I'm getting that whole talking point out of the way, and I'm never talking about it again. Okay? If you don't like Tidus' voice, cool, I get it. I understand that point of view. It does not in any way, shape, or form really alter the experience in a way that is super negative for me. I like the actor. I think the voice is fine as is. It might have been. It might have made a little more sense had he sounded more like an athlete than he does. But I'm not talking about his whiny voice anymore.
He is 17 years old now.
Yes.
The question of whether a 17-year-old would really be the greatest athlete,
That's true.
But hey. That's how this world works.
Apparently, that's how the world works. That happens. You get a Kobe Bryant.
Kobe got drafted at 17.
LeBron James. But they're not the best.
No, it took him 5 years before he really. Yeah. Anyways, that's 17, man. That's young. Although gymnasts and stuff, they can pull that off. The best gymnasts in the world tend to be teenagers.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Okay. So really quickly, another interesting fact about James Arnold Taylor that I forgot to mention during the course of our conversation here is that he actually recorded the script in order, chronological order, scene to scene. So he hadn't seen the end of the script and did not know some of the game's biggest twists. And that allowed him to react to them very genuinely, to have the surprise of those twists be coming from a place of real sincerity, since he himself didn't even know where the story was going as he started the recording process. He's talked about this in a couple of his podcasts before. And I do think that that part of his performance is really well done in the game. After hearing that, pay attention to the way that Tidus responds to things that are surprising. And I think you'll feel a lot of convincing, genuine surprise coming from the actor himself.
I want to talk about the wardrobe briefly.
Yeah, let's
because
do it.
It's wild. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's
his costume is
interesting. It's not symmetrical. His left pant leg is longer than his right, and he's got a net here and one thing on one arm but not the other. You know, it's super not symmetrical. It almost seems like you just kind of put on whatever as a kid that day, and that's what he wears.
Yeah.
But I actually really like it because it's different. One of the challenges of games that try to project some type of futuristic civilization is, what fashion? What do the cars look like? Everyone picks the little Jetsons bubble cars, and it's okay, maybe that kind of looks futuristic, but when you look back in the 60s, you see what they thought the future would look like, and then what it looks like now, and be hey, they were so wrong, right? And so nowadays, when you're trying to project, or you're trying to, show a futuristic culture, wardrobe is a big problem. What do? Do they just dress like us today? Because that's for sure not how they're going to be dressing. We don't know how they're going to dress, but it won't be how we're dressing right now, right? Yeah. And so the fact that they took so many liberties, and the clothing being minimal, despite my wife's objections, this is a South Pacific, Polynesian culture here. These aren't northern people where it snows all the time and it's bundle windy. This is at least the design here was taken after South Pacific, Indonesian, Philippines, and places like that. That's the culture. It's warm. It's hot in this place, right? Yes. This isn't so weird when you look at it that way.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
At that point, it's just fashion. It's hey, people don't wear as many clothes, right? Yeah. But it makes sense given their environment.
Yes.
So now all we're left with is, the fashion is to have your items be mismatched in this type of way and all that kind of stuff. It just becomes a question of fashion as opposed to it
function.
Makes sense as opposed to function. Exactly. And having such a strange fashion, I actually think lends to, it's part of why the game feels so foreign, but at the same time, you want that in this kind of a game. You don't want it to be so recognizable, and we don't want them to look like you or me. It makes it feel even more fantastical, and I actually really liked it. I liked it a lot.
There's basically only one design in the game that I object to, and that's Lulu's belt dress.
Oh, but the 1,000 belts, man!
Other than that,
what's she wearing 50 belts
I think it's freaking sweet.
It's really cool.
The clothing design's awesome.
Yeah. It's very cool. I liked it a lot.
So, so he's signing He makes he's talking to some kids who are like, teach us how to blitz.
Yeah.
Right?
2, 3, teach us how to blitz.
Anyways,
it's very different.
He's like, yeah, I'll teach you how to blitz, later on. I'll do it tomorrow. And then that purple hooded kid,
the little spirit
is like,
kid shows up.
You can't do it tomorrow.
And he doesn't question it.
No, he actually turns back, which is something I really wanted to keep. I wanted to keep a pin in this.
Yes, put a bookmark there. Yeah, ear the page.
He actually turned back to the purple hooded kid who's ghostly as far as we know. No one else seems to interact or know he's there.
No.
And so he's like, let's do it another day or something like. Or he says tonight. I think originally, I'll do it tonight. You can't tonight.
Yeah, you can't tonight.
I'll do it tomorrow or something. Okay, I promise. Like, yeah. So, anyways, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Something very deliberate going on there with this kid with the purple hood, right? So he leaves there and he's sort of walking down. It looks like a highway for cars.
It does.
But I don't think it is.
Well, so it looks like a highway for cars just on first glance. And it's like, where are all the cars? Okay. Well, no, there's little indents within the ground where a rail could go.
Yeah.
It seems like, hey, well, maybe it's a rail. Why is he walking on a train rail?
And people are all standing on it.
Yes. What's up with that? Okay, so it's probably not for trains either. Then it's just a walkway. And this is a big city. How come there's only like 5 people on this big walkway?
Yeah.
Well, anyways, it looks like a highway and it's a cool design.
Yeah.
It's hard. I question the function and how it works.
Yeah. So he looks up at a big kind of skyscraper and there's like a poster or some kind of digital billboard thing there of Jekt. We come to know the red bandana. This is Tidus's father.
Yep.
Up on a big screen. And he looks up at it and you can tell he has resentment. He does not like his dad. Sort of like walks past it. Something going on underneath there. But there's like a radio host sort of like speaking.
Because this is like the 10-year anniversary.
Yes, of Jekt's disappearance. From Zanarkand.
Like, I remember where I was sitting when I heard that he wasn't going to play. And it's like a sentimental kind of memory kind of radio host talking.
I think the Michael Jordan analogy was actually really apt.
Yeah.
Imagine if Michael Jordan disappeared and was never heard of again during the middle of
season.
His during the middle of his prime as a player.
1994.
Yeah. Well, he kind of went to baseball for a while, but
but he didn't die.
But imagine instead of going to baseball, he had like gone out on a ship to sea. And that ship was never found again.
Never came back.
And just like no one knows if he's alive or dead. He's pronounced dead. They assume he's dead. But that would be
heartbreaking.
Huge.
That would be horrible.
Terrible thing. I mean, it was bad enough when Kobe Bryant died in that helicopter
After he'd been
retired. After he'd been retired.
Yeah, because he was still young. He was like
still
45 or 43.
Horribly shocking thing.
Yeah.
Right? Just like, wow, that just hits you.
That one hit me hard.
So that's
my
kind of
player.
that's kind of what's going on here. This is a 10-year anniversary, and they've memorialized him by naming the city tournament, the big Blitzball tournament after him. It's the Jekt Memorial Cup tournament.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it's like he's announcing this and sort of reminiscing about Jekt's disappearance, and this is all going on radio as you're kind of walking down this path. Yeah. And he talks about how the final teams are from the A block, Zanarkand Abes, and from the C block, the Duggles. But I found it interesting. These are district within the region of Zanarkand.
City.
So Zanarkand has many teams.
Yeah.
It's not just like Zanarkand has one team and they go to different cities. Zanarkand has many teams.
Yeah.
And so
just the one city.
It's the C block division, or what would you call that? District. The C block district team against the A block district team that are in the finals.
Nice.
And Tidus's team is the A block Abe team, so that's the team he plays for, right?
The Zanarkand Abes.
So he's on his way to the arena.
Yeah.
And he gets hounded at the door.
He does.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do because you've already skipped like 5 of my notes
go
here.
for it.
And I'm just like, there's so much that I just want to talk about here.
Okay.
So, Zanarkand, it's a very corporate city. Everywhere we go, there's like advertisements everywhere, but you can't read them. They're not like normal ads. Well, they're just, the language there is a little bit different. But you can tell that it's supposed to be an ad. This is all sponsorships, and it's just all over. Especially that place where we're talking to the kids. There's like a pole in the middle, and there's just ads going around it, and that's it. And it's like neon signs and everything, which is super cool. And something specific to note here, with the city is that this is a night city. This is a city that does not sleep, right? So the nightlife is very active. Yes. You look out into the city, every light is on, and all of these skyscrapers, and it's like you can see the stars. It is clearly nighttime, but it's hustling and bustling. And
one interjection, real quick, just to throw this in there. We don't spoil late game events in the podcast. We kind of take the things as they're revealed.
Yes.
So we're not going to spoil anything. But I do want to point out that all the stuff we're talking about is very deliberate.
Yes.
Everything we're talking about has
Listen to this.
An absolute purpose. This is not just done because, that design is cool.
Yes.
Or, having the city be a nighttime city looks cool from a distance in the skyline. The fact that the city is having district teams playing against each other, all these things I'm pointing out to you.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying it. They don't just have that in the radio show for no reason.
Right.
Like, all of these things are breadcrumb setups to things later in the game.
It may sound trivial as we talk about it, but
it's not.
We're pointing this out for a reason.
Yes.
So this is a nightlife city and all that stuff, right? You don't really know what it looks like during the day. Here's another interesting note about the city. You cannot see the ground.
Because you're always on archways that are up.
You're always up high. There's buildings. You look out into the distance, just buildings. Buildings. Do you see a mountain anywhere? Do you see anything? Do you see grass? Do you see dirt?
Yep.
You do not see the earth.
Yep.
You see water and metal.
Yeah.
That's about it, right?
Yep.
So it is just pure. It is high industry to the point of kind of separating from the earth.
Yeah.
The people are separate from the earth, like quite a bit. There's some symbolism there too. Zanarkand, by the way, is based on a city in Uzbekistan called Samarkand.
Oh.
Do you know this, Samarkand?
No.
Samarkand is, first off, there's the name, right? Which is like, hey, could be coincidence. But then you look at the way the buildings look in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. They're cylindrical buildings with dome tops. And not only that, but as they go into this arena that you just mentioned, where Tidus is just mobbed by people, just swarmed, dozens of people, and he can't even get through. He's got to push through the crowd to get in there. There's these statues right next to it, and then there's this wall going up with these archways, very, very interesting shaped archways. They're not rounded on the top. They kind of go up to a point on the top. It's kind of like a medieval style archway. It's an Islamic design, actually. And it is in the city of Uzbekistan. And it's specifically how some of the temple work and some of the... This is an old city. By the way, so Samarkand is one of the oldest cities in Asia. Wow. It's been around for thousands and thousands of years. And it was a bustling metropolis. It was like a capital center where all the roads met in Samarkand. This may have some significance for the story as well. Just be aware.
So
it was a thriving metropolis that slowly...
You just mentioned the archway being part of temple designs. It's interesting if that appears in front of the Blitzball arena.
Yes.
Because it's almost like Blitzball is their religion.
So remember this, and I have a whole paragraph on this, but the kids when we're leaving and it's like, hey, see you later, we'll see you at the game, the kids do that, the sign, right? Yes. And then they bow.
Yes.
And as you play through the game, you realize that symbol
became a religious symbol later.
But it is important to note the similarities just in general between sports and religion.
Yes.
Extremely.
I was talking to my dad about this the other day.
Yes. Think about what you do. A sports arena is a temple.
Yes.
It is a temple where everyone goes to worship the gods, right?
Yep.
And it's a battle of the gods.
Yep.
You've got the Phoenix Suns, the sun god, right? Playing against the Sacramento Kings, the god of the kings. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
And the gods are going to clash via their priests that officiate, within the rules, on the court. And these are the priests. These are the high priests that are allowed. They're the high status of the religion that are allowed to officiate in the ordinances or whatever you want to call it. And then you have the next level down, and there's the people are cheering. You paint your face. You wear the colors of your team. You dress in the holy garments
rituals
of your temple of your god. Yes, and it's incredible. It's just amazing. And you chant and you say the words and you repeat and you watch the drama. You go to war and you watch the drama unfold of the game. And anyways, and you're literally It's almost like a form.
Persecute those in the other.
Yes. It's there's an Old Testament story which is where the priests say which God's better, and Baal is here, and all of his priests are trying to make a fire happen in their altar, and then the Jehovah guys are over here doing their altar, and then there's also Asherah is doing their altar, but it's all the women, the priestesses, and then God picks the Jehovah one, and then they killed all the other priests. They literally had them all killed, and it was like, okay, maybe they had to do that, maybe they didn't, but all the Baal priests got killed. But that's like what it is, right? And ancient Maya, they had that ball. It's like a soccer type game they'd play where they'd sacrifice the team at the end of it. And sports being religious is like, it may sound weird, but really just think about it for a minute.
It's really
just
not.
Think about it. It's not. And you even have like a form of worship or imitation, which is the kids have their idol. Like the word's idol, right? Like Michael Jordan was an idol for all these kids. Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe. I'm in the 90s. Sorry, I don't know modern basketball players anymore.
Yeah, LeBron James.
LeBron's still playing, right?
You've got
Steph Curry.
James Harden, Steph Curry.
So the kids are, one of the ideas of worship is imitation, right?
Yeah.
Right. You take the Holy Communion because Christ did the Last Supper. You get baptized because you're following what Christ did. It's like a part of worship is imitation. So you've got these kids that are growing up playing basketball, hoping that maybe one day they could become the high priests that gain the favor of the gods and lead their city, And also the way like ancient Egypt worked, it was whatever religion you were, just depended on whatever temple you lived near, right? So if you lived near the Aten temple, you worshiped the sun god because that's where you lived, right? And that was the area. And there were like thousands of temples, but most of them weren't for the same god. They were all for different gods.
And depending on the city you live in, that's
whatever
the sports team
exactly.
you like. Yeah.
And you can be like, oh, I prefer the Boston Red Sox because I wear red socks. But it's like, okay, but are you ever going to see them play? Yeah. Maybe if you're in the right league, maybe once a year they might come to your city.
Yeah.
That's the best you can do. You really ought to change religions and worship the Phoenix Suns if you live in Phoenix, and not, whatever. Or I guess it'd be the Arizona Diamondbacks. You could better worship the Diamondback snake god instead of the Red Sox, because, like, sorry, dude, but the Red Sox aren't coming over. For
you're not going to see them. Right?
Yeah. Okay, now that was a tangent.
Sure.
That was a tangent, but it's super important to note the similarities, especially in the way that the crowds revere and worship these athletes as though they are gods. Yeah, outside of the temple, you've got these statues of these, I say temple, outside of the arena, which same thing, right?
Yeah.
You've got these statues of these gods with their spears and they're facing off against each other, and then you have this wall that's like a wall of a temple, with the arched doorways, just like the Islamic designs of Samarkand in Uzbekistan, and you enter into the sacred space and you perform the ritual. And it's like, it's no wonder that something like a sporting event can evolve into essentially a religion.
Turned into a religious symbol later on.
That it all becomes religious because it's all essentially religious in nature from the get-go to begin with.
The FMV here is really impressive for the Blitzball game.
Oh, it's so cool.
It's really.
It is so cool.
It's playing this kind of like metal theme as like, because he's there kind of like relaxing before the game, right? He's got some like water droplets on his face.
Yeah, and you don't quite know. I assumed he was like in a locker room or something.
Yeah.
But then the lights turn on and it's just like, oh man, this is so cool. This is so cool. This is the beginning of the sequence that I identify where I'm just like, I cannot believe how awesome this was. This is where it starts.
Yeah. And so the sphere in which they play, right? It's almost like there's almost a gravity field, and the water fills up in like a spherical. It sort of like expands outward, and so they're playing inside of this
with like this electricity kind of thing going.
Kind of like that helps it hold its shape or something.
And then it explodes. It just pops, and the crowd, just like we were saying, the crowd just explodes with cheers and just like, that was dope, you know, and boom, the arena's set just in one moment of, I don't know how they fill up a water bubble that big with electricity, but they did it, and it was just like, so cool.
So they're playing Blitzball, and as this game is going, you see Auron standing on like a high precipice, and it's expectantly. It's as if he knows what's coming.
Yep.
He's expecting it, and he points at it as Sin, we'll just call it aquatic monster, begins approaching with this tidal wave.
It's like
coming off in the distance,
puts his
and he's
hand
just
up,
pointing at it, as
Auron?
it's coming towards him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Is
it's
that
like-
what he's doing?
Yeah.
I thought he was like doing a gesture like
Yeah,
this.
so it's not like he's
Okay.
summoning it,
Right.
but he's pointing
Yeah.
it out as
Fair
if
enough.
like,
Good-
I
good.
see you, you're on the way.
Good distinction.
And he seems to know it's coming, and he's almost nonchalant as he walks through the city while everyone's panicking.
Yeah, as he walks in that puddle, and then the droplets start going
Start
up,
floating up.
and it's like,
Yep.
this is where it just starts getting crazy. Like, what am I watching?
Mm-hmm.
The rules of reality are breaking before my eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is crazy. I've never, even to this day, I've never seen anything quite like this FMV.
Yeah.
And how cool it is, and how it contrasts with that heavy metal music, and it's just so cool. But yeah, he steps in the water, and all of a sudden gravity starts to reverse. Everything behind him starts going upwards towards this big like water. It's like a tsunami, you know, but it's not.
Yes.
Because it's just sucking everything
It's a
in.
giant sea monster
Yes.
that starts attacking the city, destroying it, killing people. Buildings are falling apart, and in the middle of this blitzball game. So like
Yeah,
the
the
mechanism
excitement.
sort of like breaks down, and Tidus has to like grab onto something because the water sort of like
Well, the Sin shoots out these like missiles going towards.
Yeah.
So Tidus jumps out of the water, does this sick backflip. He's about to kick the ball. It's going to be the coolest thing you've ever seen. But he sees all of a sudden these missiles coming right towards him, and everything just.
I
Like,
actually
the
think
whole arena gets
this is
broken.
the move he does later when he's in Spira, and
The
he sees
spinning one?
where he comes out of the water and
Oh,
he flips
yes,
and kicks the
it's that
ball,
one. It's
and,
that
and
one.
he impresses Waka with the.
Yes.
It's the same move.
It's because he hits it with his head, and then he kicks
Flips.
it.
And
Does
then
a bicycle
he
kick.
sees in slow motion Sin
Yeah.
starting, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, what is this?"
Yes.
And just boom.
You can almost
just
see it
blows
reflecting
away.
in his eyes.
Yeah.
One interesting note about Blitzball is that it was inspired by pod racing. So, you know, connect those two dots however you want to. But also in 2000 or 2002, the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, I think, was held in Japan.
Oh.
And they were kind of doing a little connection kind of thing here, putting in things like a bicycle kick and general soccer elements within Blitzball was sort of a little bit of a, like, adding to the excitement of the World Cup that was coming
that
to
makes
Japan.
sense.
I think
Yeah.
Japan and Korea joint hosted it together that year.
Yeah.
But I think that's why they added in some of those elements.
Yeah.
It's super cool though, super
Yeah.
cool.
Blitzball's cool, and we'll talk maybe more about the minigame itself and
Yeah.
mechanically how it feels
Well,
to play it.
It looks cool. It looks cool.
It's a cool looking
Yeah.
sport.
I was thinking if you actually played this game, it would be scuba divers basically, and it
Yeah.
would be so slow.
Yeah.
It would not be fun to watch at all.
And maybe I'll hold off on this for a second, but we'll talk about the length at which these players can hold their breath underwater and stuff
Okay.
a little bit later.
'Kay, sounds
there is
good.
some more explanation for it, but
I just love how you feel the excitement of the game, and then you contrast that with like absolute death that is coming, that is
Yeah.
going to kill everybody.
Yeah.
And they're still just playing this game, and
Yeah.
that music is just, you know,
Yeah.
just shredding, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And it's just like, what am I feeling? Like, I don't know what my emotions are, but there's a lot of them, and they're all, something big is gonna happen here, and you can just feel it. It all comes together, you know?
yeah.
So anyways, yeah, that thing shoots its missiles at him, and everything breaks. And it's interesting to note that he shoots that area. That's the temple, right? So you got this temple where they
Destroys
worship. He destroys
their
the
religious
and as
temple.
soon as he comes out, after he falls, those statues that I mentioned before, they're torn to pieces. They're on the
Yeah.
ground. They're broken, and the arena is destroyed. The sphere of water is gone, but when you look up and see what did it, it's a sphere of water up in the
Yeah.
air. So it's almost as if God has turned himself into the god that they had. They were worshiping this god of their sport, you know?
Yeah.
And then this jealous god shows up
In
and
the
destroys
image
their
of
temple
their-
in the image of their god, basically. And well, I know they didn't worship the arena specifically, but I think there's something there, you know? And it destroys their temple. It destroys their religion. They flee the temple before the power of the true, you say the true God, that is in that form. That's the form it kind of chose. I think I wrote that a little bit differently somewhere else, but that's more or less the idea.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that's what it looks like. It's like, you guys, I'm going to show you what it really means, you know?
Yeah. I want to talk for just a minute about Auron's design a little bit, because this is, you know, it's a very cool design. I think Auron is my favorite character in this game.
He's great.
We're not going to get to know him much until later. But
He's good in Kingdom Hearts, too.
yeah, he has his arm kind of out of the sleeve of his kimono, right?
Yeah.
Like this, and that look, that sort of like look for a samurai has, I think, become, what's the word for it? Like conjoined with the idea of a Ronin in like traditional samurai movies and things like that, which I think Kurosawa really like helped to like establish. So like the idea of like, they got like the jug of the sake, and they got like the arm out, like almost like it's in a sling, but it's outside of their outside of the sleeve or whatever. And so what I had heard in the past and kind of doubted if it was actually true was that Ronin would, who are masterless samurai, so samurai whose masters have died or were betrayed somehow, or they no longer
decommissioned
have
soldiers.
Someone that they serve right now. They're like a wandering samurai.
They do their own thing.
That they would do this as some sort of sign of shame that they don't have a master or something. That's what I had heard all the times I had researched Auron's design. And it's like, that sounds so bogus to me. That can't be right.
No, Japan, a culture that's obsessed with no shame and honor, they don't just show their shame on purpose like that. Yeah, that doesn't sound
I started looking into this, like where did this come from, right? Yojimbo was one of the Kurosawa films in particular where they had a character with the arm outside like that all the time, right? And so there were some interesting answers here. This comes from a Jesuit missionary, Louis Froy, who was basically saying that the Japanese people, men and women both, didn't like to feel restricted, so they would kind of put their arms back into their kimonos and not have them in the sleeves like that, either to bundle up when it was cold.
I've seen that when they're cold.
Things like that. So that there's like, accounts of this sort of thing as being a thing of their culture. So like that was like the first thing I kind of came across, was like maybe this is kind of where this idea of not like putting your arms into sleeves might have come from. But there are actually images of samurai who are doing this. So
nice, that's cool.
There's an image here, like in the 1800s, like end of the Edo period, basically, of Sakamoto Ryoma, who is doing that. His left arm appears to be held inside the kimono, out of the sleeve like this. It's an iconic image from the end of the Edo period. He was a famous samurai and sometimes a Ronin who affected this style. So it seems like it was something. Basically, I won't get too much into this because I don't want to get bogged down on it. But as I was looking into this, what this appears to be, because there's even like art and things where it shows them doing this, right? The arm outside of the sleeve from that time period, like art. It's like depicted in their art and things from the Edo period. What it seems to be is that it has a basis for something that people did that we might not completely understand contextually to the society of the time. But in the similar way to where knee-high leather cowboy boots with giant metal spurs on them and a 6 at your side became the image of a cowboy that is iconic from Western films.
Yes.
And it's like you see that and you go, that's a cowboy.
Yeah.
But if you
Whether
actually
they
went
dressed
back in
that way or
time,
not.
they probably didn't look like that at all.
Yes.
Right? And this is probably a similar thing that Kurosawa films did for Ronin and samurai, was like, this is the style of Ronin we see in the old samurai movies that created an iconic image of what a Ronin looks like. And that's sort of just like, that's instantly recognizable in Japanese culture today as being, that's a Ronin. They wear their arm like this. They have the sake bottle. Right? That's a Ronin. In the same way that our cowboys are designed in our Western films. But it probably doesn't have much basis in fact.
Yeah, probably not.
So what this probably is just a way that the culture of Japan would instantly recognize Auron as he looks like a Ronin, or whatever the Spira equivalent of that would be.
Yeah.
And we'll learn more about that later in the story.
That's funny because I mentioned wardrobe earlier and how it's like not identifiable in any way.
Right.
And it's interesting that they made this choice so that people would identify them, so that he wouldn't look so foreign. He would look like something that they know what to expect from him.
Right.
Whereas we don't know what to expect from anyone else because I've never seen any of those clothes before in my life. I have no idea who they are. But then he shows up and it's like, all right, I kind of get this. I get it a little bit.
Yeah. So anyway, just thought I'd talk about that real quick. But okay.
Here's the other idea. Reality is literally dissolving while they're playing Blitzball entirely unaware.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some deeper, they're trying to say something a little deeper about that, right? the world is ending and they're just playing a game.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot to do that.
That's all good.
Okay. This is it. Sin presents itself as their god, a large blitzball field of water. As it destroys their idols, people now flee the destroyed temple in fear of the judgments of God.
I love that.
Great.
Destroys their idols, man.
Yep.
Because that's pretty much what's going on.
That's
and
totally what's going on.
We'll learn a lot more about the context of this
Yeah.
later in the game. But yeah, it's basically, it feels like a society who has
They don't have religion.
They've forgotten the gods.
Yes, yeah.
They worship an idol, which is their
Yes.
blitzball and their other things.
Yes.
And God came down to basically like punish them for this.
Flood the earth.
That's basically
Reset.
what this is.
Yeah.
Right?
Noah's Ark stuff,
Restart, a Noah's Ark sort
Yeah.
of restart to society.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I feel
Yes.
like that's a good analogy.
Okay, so as Tidus comes out of the arena, Auron is waiting for him, right? And he's just like, Auron, like, what are you doing here?
Auron, so they know each other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So it's like,
they
we
know
saw
each other.
Auron, not afraid of this thing at all, totally
Yeah.
expected. First time we've seen him, he's portrayed
Yeah.
as a bad guy.
He's like a mentor to Tidus.
But he shows up and we know him and we're friends.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know what to do. Do I trust this guy or not?
Yeah,
That's
right.
really good, by the way.
I like it.
They did that so well
Yeah.
that, like, do I trust this guy or not? And that's going to carry through a lot of the game.
Yeah. So he recognizes him. They go off together. As he's sort of following Auron, time freezes for sort of an extended period here, as the purple hooded boy is in front of him again. It's like everything freezes, and Tidus is like, "What's going on?" And he sees the boy, and what the boy says is, "It begins. Don't cry."
Don't cry. Yeah, not gonna.
Now this was the part that I said, this is stylistically so Nomura to me.
Yeah.
This is so Kingdom Hearts, a Kingdom Hearts way of setting up a mystery.
Yeah.
Right, like how do I make a mysterious character? What's the type of dialogue they would have?
Just be
like,
purposefully very vague.
Yes, this has the stylistic stamp of like Tetsuya Nomura, Creative Business Unit 1 all over it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad. I just saying I notice
It does feel
that's
very Kingdom
how
Hearts.
they tend to do it.
And that game came out very close to this game. They
Yeah.
were both released at not quite the same year. Maybe the same year, though. I don't know. 2002-ish, something like that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so they were being co-developed side by side, and Tetsuya Nomura working on both of them.
Yeah.
So I'm positive that some ideas kind of seeped back and forth.
It is, the stylistic method here for building an intrigue or a mystery
Yeah.
is so like married to the style of Kingdom Hearts that it's just very obvious to me, right?
Yeah,
that it's the
I see
same
it.
people making it.
I see it too.
So he catches up with Auron a little bit later when time resumes, and Auron tells him as he's looking at the monster, right? We called it Sin. So he names the monster Sin.
Yeah, he knows a lot about this thing
He knows
that
exactly
just showed up
what
to
it
kill
is.
everyone.
He totally knew it was.
Yeah.
He totally expected it. So as they're looking at it in the distance, little like pieces of its body fly off. These little Sin spawn.
Yeah, where it shot the missiles, they like stuck into the buildings, and there's
Yeah.
this like tentacle, and these spawn just show up, and we have to fight them all. Really cool, by the way, that the city's burning while it's also on water, right? There's just water everywhere. There's waterfalls coming out of the buildings.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
That is cool.
Isn't that the coolest thing ever?
Yeah.
Waterfalls out of the buildings, just streams of water everywhere, and the city's on fire.
Yeah.
Like contrast, man. That was well done. That is cool. Visually beautiful.
So as they're attacking, Auron gives Tidus a sword. So again, it's just he's obviously planning, maybe not planning, but like expecting
carried an extra sword.
And this is he was planning for this.
Yes.
Is probably the better way to put it.
Yes.
He knew it was coming, so
Yeah.
he has a sword for him.
And then he tells us it was our father's
Yes,
sword,
a
right?
gift from Jack.
And look at the way that sword looks.
Yeah.
It looks like a hook.
Yep.
It's red,
Yep.
crimson red, and it goes up. It's jagged like lightning, and it's got that hook motif that is very Polynesian, very cool.
Yeah. A gift from Jack. So this is directly, and because his response to that is my old man.
Yeah.
So this is the first time we're connecting Jack, the man who disappeared, the Michael Jordan of this
Yeah.
society, as Tidus's father.
As his father. Now I didn't check the Japanese he would have used for my old man. I don't know what they would have said there, but it was likely just a really rude way to refer to your own father.
Oh, sure.
Typically,
like a non-formal way.
Yeah, typically you will refer to your own father, especially if he's not present, in a respectful way.
Yeah.
Unless you're just talking to a friend, which he is, so it could easily be that. But I feel like there's something in the way that he refers to his father as his old man that
purpose.
in the Japanese may actually show a little bit of disrespect.
Yeah, disrespecting on purpose kind of
Yeah,
thing.
on purpose, exactly.
That probably would have been the best way to translate that. That's
I
like the
didn't
most
look at it, though.
informal way to say my dad.
Yeah.
My old man.
My old man.
'Cause
Well,
it's-
Xenogears has a line like that, right?
Yeah.
Where it's the you mean my dad line, the famous line, you know?
He's like,
and,
my father, you mean my dad?
And the Japanese used there was a different word for father that's less common, so it could be that.
So they pass another poster, like, image of Jecht in the city. And Tidus, like, in the middle of this destruction, takes the time to notice and say, "What are you laughing at, old man?" He just hates his dad a lot.
Yes. It's like his dad's in his head. His dad is just constantly...
His dad lives rent-free in his mind.
Yes, rent-free, just right there, taking up tons of bandwidth.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you laughing at?
So anyways, you fight some more Sin-Spawn. They do some tutorial kind of things. And then the really cool part happens where, like...
Oh, real quick, though. There's another round of barrage of missiles is fired from Sin and hits a building with Jecht
and
on
it falls on him.
Yes.
I noticed that,
And it comes... Now, I just love this. I love this, right? Sin destroys the city and brings...
Tidus' dad.
Tidus and his father together. Anyway, okay, so... I think we're in the right place. So the kid we keep seeing has a symbol on his back. They showed it very deliberately. It's a circle with another circle in the middle and 6 arms like waves going out. Hold on, I wrote this down here. So a circle with 6 arms pointing out like waves spiraling into the center. So that has great significance. He also has 6 golden medallions. So 3 on each side. And then 6 arms of... a wave that is spiraling. Anyways, the land we end up going to is called Spira. I can't help but think that that's some type of, just that symbol there almost kind of tells you what's happening just in an icon, you know, in a way that it's just there. It's off to the side. You wouldn't even really pay attention. I sure didn't when I first played this game. But looking at it now, I'm like, that is, that's actually very interesting for, you know, the way the whole game kind of plays out.
Yeah, definitely. So the kind of roadway that they're on, the walkway they're on, kind of breaks apart and it starts to be like raised up into the sky. This shot is so cool too.
I know. Dude.
Towards like an opening that's like happening in the sky where Sin's body is floating up there, right?
And this is where everything is going just haywire. It is absolute madness. Everything, the reversal of gravity is in like full effect. Everything is just moving upwards, which is fascinating because the town is being destroyed by being elevated, right? That's unusual. That's very uncommon. And I just have too many notes here. I'm just gonna have to read. just bear with me for a few minutes here. Now I say, what is happening? So most of this, okay, I'm talking about the clashing and the dissonant music and it just very emotional. Most of this is confusion and wonder. That's the emotions that I'm feeling.
Yeah, the music is not like
wonder.
The music is not dark or like dangerous sounding. It's almost like
at that point,
mystical and
very much so.
Mysterious.
That thing is calling to us.
Yes.
It's killing everybody. Everyone in the city is dead.
Yeah.
But there's a lure.
Yeah.
There's an alluring nature of this item that's in the air. So I've got this written down. Confusion and wonder. What is happening is abstract, like right out of a dream. In fact, the whole sequence here feels a lot like a dream. A nice, fluffy, happy dream that slowly turns into a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like Inception, when the laws of nature begin to bend and reality starts to break down. Remember in Inception where the city like kind of folds on top of itself and it's like, I remember watching that movie and thinking, holy crap, I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
Dude, Final Fantasy X, I hadn't played it when I saw Inception.
Oh, right.
But it's that same feeling where it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? This is so crazy. Okay, now hold on. Yeah, and I mentioned where's the nature? We're not seeing anything natural here.
Yeah.
Everything is, well, other than water.
Water, but like
That's
there's no trees, there's no
Yes.
animals, there's
nothing
no
resembles nature. Yeah,
earth or grass or
no plants. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
Almost nothing resembles nature except for the general existence of water, which is made to behave unnaturally. So even the water, they're shocking it with electricity into becoming a sphere, into behaving in an unnatural manner, right? They have just bent nature to its breaking point, it seems, right? They've bent the literal laws of nature to where it just can't exist anymore. All reality has broken down, and it almost seems like they did this.
Yeah.
They did that. They worshipped these false gods and idols. They didn't have respect for the laws of nature, and they slowly called upon themselves this ridiculous calamity that is just destroying everything. Okay. So we've got the kid. Auron tells us to look up. We see a massive ball of water consuming everything like a black hole. This is, of course, reminiscent of the game Blitzball, but Auron calls it Sin, which is a fascinating name for many reasons. We haven't even talked about that. We'll get more into that later because Sin, comes back. Fascinating name for many reasons. The Japanese word for death is shi, right?
Yeah.
So it's called shin, which is translated shin. So just so people know, the Japanese tend to have difficulty saying si, the si. Same thing with t. And there's certain words that for whatever reason, when it comes to making the I sound, they will say chi instead of t. They will say she instead of si. Yeah. Now they can say si. I'm not saying they can't say it, but their alphabet doesn't have a character for si. It's just she. That's how they do it. So sa, shi, su, se, so. It's she. That's how they do it. But so they call it shin. And that's translated as sin, but what you don't get is there's also a dual meaning. It also means death. It means like death. So what is coming isn't death. I feel like there's an analogy both ways to sin and death. I mean, the death one's pretty obvious, right?
Right.
So Shinu, for example, means to die. Shinu.
Gotcha.
Right. So, and this thing's called Shin. Okay.
Shin Megami.
Exactly, like Shinigami or Shin Megami means death god or whatever, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, I love the highway shot where Tidus and Jecht are forced to be together by the destruction. Things aren't falling to destruction, they are ascending to the judgment of God. That's what I fed here. Yeah. They move upwards, away from the material world, which is where the city was moving anyways. They were getting away from nature. So they're being assumed up into, well, not kind of a heaven, but this is like a demiurge. This isn't like God. Right. This is like the demiurge, right? Which for those of you who don't know, that's the Gnostic interpretation of something approximating
a physical,
the creator of the
material
world.
God, not the spiritual, true, pure, perfect
not the
God.
True, pure God of
that's
the
monad.
The single source God.
The demiurge is the corrupted, physical, material God. Yeah.
But it seems to be, that seems to be kind of the God that they're kind of playing with here.
Yeah.
Things are not falling, they're ascending towards God. They move upwards, away from the material world, and towards transformation, right? That's the upward movement, is towards being transformed. The final breakdown of reality happens as we enter the watery black hole. In this, water symbolizes death, but we also pass through fire. It begins to change. This is why it's a symbol of transformation. It also, it's like a birth canal kind of thing, right? Yeah, but especially given that we go through it and we are reborn into a new world, right?
Speaking on that, you're going to have a video talking about this in the future. Birth of a hero archetype, right?
The birth of a hero archetype in video games, and Final Fantasy X is definitely part of that. We pass through fire and water into pure light, right? As soon as we go into it, and this is the part where we're at here. So Auron grabs us, and before, it's like he's going to save us, right? But for whatever reason, he's leading us towards this thing, right? Now, we trust him, clearly. Well, Tidus trusts him. And so, but at some point, it's like, why are we going towards it, right? But that's just where he was leading us, and Tidus doesn't really question it until Auron picks him up, and then we start moving upwards, because gravity is at this point pulling everything upwards, except for Auron, it seems. He can stay down for whatever reason. And he looks up towards Sin, and it's almost as if they're communicating
something from
and he says, "Are you sure?"
Yes.
Okay, and then he says, "This is the beginning of your story."
Yep. It all
and then he throws us up, and then he also goes in.
And I like
everything
that effect.
Just like it stretches.
Yeah, because it's like a black hole almost, right? Like the closer you get to the event horizon, right? It starts to pull you and stretch you into an infinite small space. And that's kind of the effect, is like it's just like stretching up into there.
It's just like a black hole.
Like you're entering the event horizon almost.
Yes.
It's really cool effect.
That's super cool. And it's like the thing, it morphs too, because it's water, but as soon as we get close to it, it turns into like a fleshy looking thing with this hole in the middle, right? That resembles something of like a birth canal. But then as we get even closer to it, it turns into fire. And we're literally going into fire, and then it goes from that into pure light. So you have something like a transition and a transformation from water to flesh to fire to light, right? And it just like moves us up, straight up into, well, who knows where. But that's the idea. It's transformation, and it's like a birthing sequence, and it's freaking crazy. It's really
I never thought about it this way, but this is totally an isekai story.
Oh yeah, it is.
It's 100%. He got isekai.
He got isekai'd, but to his own world again. In a different way, you know. But yeah, it's like it is isekai, but it's also like a weird take on isekai.
This was probably the first isekai I actually remember seeing in my life. Though I had never heard of that term before. Wow. But anyway, I had just never thought of it that way. But it's totally an isekai story. But before you actually get to Spira,
yes, there's
the one.
We got to talk about this
sort of transitional sequence here, and it starts at he's like swimming, but he's swimming in the air. And he's looking out at the symbol, his like father's symbol.
Yes, the
burning in the distance on fire.
The Zanarkand Abes. Yeah, it's burning.
And again, he identifies that symbol as a eject symbol by saying "my old man" again, or like "old man" or something. And he's like looking at it.
Don't we hear a voice that's not his voice as well, saying something? I swear we heard.
Yes, I vaguely remember that. What the
we heard. He says a thing.
Hold on, let me pull it up.
I can't remember what it is. So in the Japanese version of the game. Not apparently, finding out now, not in the English version, but in the Japanese version, as soon as we get, well, before we get isekai'd completely, but as soon as we get into the black hole to begin with, there's an older voice that shouts, "Oi, oi," which is translated as "hey, hey."
Yeah.
But it seems to be an older voice.
Yes.
And that is not in the English, it seems.
No, it's only in the Japanese.
Now that's crazy. So in the Japanese, there's somebody that shouts our name, and then Tidus says, "My old man," right after that. Right. But Tidus is looking at this symbol, the Zanarkand Abes symbol. But before that, only in the Japanese version, it seems, that somebody shouts to him before, while the screen is pure white.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
I need to look into exactly who that is, so we're going to get back to everyone on that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
Because I thought, well, if it's in English, I'll recognize the voice, but it's not there.
It's not there.
That voice does not say "hey, hey" in English at all.
That's so fascinating. So I wonder why it was taken out, and I wonder who it is, and all that stuff. So we're going to have to get back to you guys next week. But somebody is talking to us here, and Tidus' first response in the Japanese is "oyaji," which is "my old man."
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, something to look into there.
Yeah. Fascinating.
But yeah, he's looking at the symbol, the burning symbol in the distance. He says, "My old man." So it connects that symbol to Jecht. He swims down and then approaches a boy, which is the younger version of himself.
But so when you approach and you enter the cutscene, it's the boy, and he's dressed like us, so it's obviously us. But before you enter the cutscene, you see it's a woman. It's not a boy.
Oh, really?
And it's like his mother. Oh, now let me real quick.
That I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was just the boy.
No, it is in the cutscene, but if you just look, here, watch this.
It looks like Auron to me.
Ah.
Like a
you're right. I thought it was
visage.
A woman, but I'm looking at this, and I think you're right. I think it's Auron.
I think it's a ghostly visage of Auron.
I thought, no, because there's a kid next to him. I thought that this was a woman and a kid standing next to the woman. That's
really
way no. Look, this one you can see it a lot better.
Oh, that is better. It's clearer. Yeah, there's a boy standing next to him.
Yeah, there's a boy and Auron, or a boy and his mother. I can't tell if that's Auron or his mother.
It's hard to see. They're really transparent, so it's kind of hard to make out features.
Ooh, that's pretty good though.
It doesn't look like Auron in this version.
No.
In this video.
It's like a red dress. That's Jecht. I'm seeing it now. He's got his arms folded. He's got the red bandana. Do you think that's us?
It probably is Jecht. Well, I don't know though. Is that what he wears?
Because
he's bare-chested.
He doesn't show a shirt.
That might be Jecht. I don't know. It's really hard to tell who that is. But that is Tidus, the boy there.
Yeah, so boy Tidus is there, but there's also someone else there. But as soon as you enter the cutscene, how did you do the back one by frame?
You'd use these arrows here. And he is folding his arms. That's like Jecht's pose, but
No.
it doesn't look like his clothing.
And that's definitely
But
the
it's
kid.
hard to see because he's so transparent. It's
Not-
really hard
It's
to tell
not
who it
just
is.
young Tidus. That's
Yeah.
for sure. That's the
Okay.
one thing I know. It's not
Well,
just young Tidus.
You're right. So there's someone else standing there, but then once he actually, when the camera cuts to a close-up on Tidus there, and it's just the boy is left
Then it's
over.
just the boy. So I wonder if there was a decision made at some point to say, oh, it's just the kid, but there was a mismatch, or if we were supposed to see both figures there. I don't know.
Maybe. But the narration from Tidus here is, I thought about a lot of things, like where I was and what I'd gotten myself into. I started to feel lightheaded and then sleepy. I think I had a dream of being alone. I wanted someone, anyone beside me, so I didn't have to feel alone anymore. Again, very deliberate.
Very deliberate.
Word
This is what
choice.
my note here was. Well, I probably wouldn't even say it, but it's just remember that
Yeah.
stuff. Remember all of this stuff if you can.
So that
Played this game
concludes-
twice. That's the real
That
thing.
concludes the introduction sequence, and I
Yeah.
think it is possibly like one of the greatest hooks in the series. It's
Unbelievably good.
exceptionally well.
It's like impossibly good.
directed and executed, and really interesting visually, and the music is great, and it's loaded with hints and foreshadowing. Everything is deliberate. Everything is done for a purpose.
It's symbolic. It all means stuff.
It's crazy how
Yeah.
good it is.
You have to play this game twice. Like, you have to. If you haven't played it in a while, play it again.
Yeah.
And really just pay attention to that opening cutscene, and you will feel your heart beats per minute just double. And by the end of it, you'll just be like, what is going on? I've played this game before, but this has new meaning now. It's just so cool, so well done.
Yeah. So honestly, I think that's probably a good place to leave off
Yeah, I
for
think
this
so.
episode.
Yeah. Then we'll
I
see you
think-
guys in Spira.
Yeah. I think that we can probably move a little quicker through the next
I think we
scenes than
will.
that
There
one.
was just so much
There's
in
just a lot
Zanarkand.
there.
There was just so much.
So I know that I said last time to play up to the point of Kilika Temple.
Well, this time for sure, play
I
the
think
Kilika
this
Temple.
time for sure we'll get there next time.
I think we'll get there.
So that's the plan, right?
So as of right now, this is my favorite game ever made. So we'll see
how-
where it goes
if
from
that
here.
continues. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're excited to read your comments. Of course, chime in with anything that you guys know about development history or some of the answers. A couple of things we were a little confused on, like who is that figure standing next to
Yes.
Tidus there?
Who's the figure? Who's the voice?
Who's the voice in Japanese speaking, saying hey, hey to him as he's
Yeah.
going into the white?
I mean, we have ideas of who these people are, but it's like not perfectly sure.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, it's a book club, video game book club, so
Yes, we read the comments.
contribute. We read the comments.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you again next week in Spira, and peace out. Till then.